Hey there, we're going to talk about tomorrow's Libra solar eclipse. It's a very last eclipse in the sign of Libra, almost kind of closing this Aries and Libra dynamic of the eclipses that we had since last spring, truly, last April. And it's quite a special and quite a powerful and raw eclipse because it's exactly conjunct Black Moon Lilith. Black Moon Lilith is the lunar apogee, it's the darkest point in the moon's orbit, it's where the moon is the furthest away from Earth. So it's not a point in physical space itself, but it's a point on the path of the moon. This eclipse talks a lot about relationship and relationship dynamics. Solar eclipses are, of course, always new moons, and new moons are always about brand new beginnings and huge new portals opening. A solar eclipse is like a supercharged new moon. It's so much more potent and intense and deep and profound. It often involves and brings up energies, circumstances, dynamics, which feel kind of unpredictable and at the same time can often feel very faded or karmic, for better or for worse, right? Solar eclipses are like that cosmic trickster card that disrupts the normal and conventional flow of time, which is also why in between eclipses we can often feel a bit out of it, because the usual flow of day and night is being interrupted for a brief moment, right? Through the blocking out of the sunlight of an eclipse, or blocking out of the moonlight in the shadow of the Earth with a lunar eclipse. And even though there is such a great focus on relationships here, there's also at the same time such a deep and profound focus on the element of water, where Libra's highest side is very cool-headed, rational, and clear. The strong emphasis on the water element in the chart and in the moment emphasizes and puts such a strong attention to our experience of emotion and feeling and the deeper underlying complexity that we're encountering in relationships that is maybe eluding our more clear-headed ideas, ideals, and the rational mind with which we sometimes wish to apply ourselves to relationship dynamics. And of course, also this deep watery influence points back to last full moon 2 weeks ago, which was the first eclipse in the sign of Pisces and being conjunct Neptune on top of that, opening us up so much more to this watery realm of Pisces, which will be such a huge focus once the lunar nodes fully shifts out of the Aries Libra axis into the Pisces Virgo axis in the coming 2 or 3 months, I think. And then, of course, bringing more and more eclipses in those two signs. Anyhow, maybe let's open up the chart so you can follow me along and see where all of this is pointed at or reflected from the sky. So we've got the chart here, and see here you see this big stellium. It's when many points are together in Libra. The eclipse itself being exactly on 10 degrees of Libra, and they're right next to it, also on 10 degrees of Libra, is the symbol for Black Moon Lilith. Further, we also got Mercury here, and of course the south node, which is the nodal axis, which even makes the eclipses possible, right? Because Earth, Sun, and Moon will stand in one perfect line to each other, being able to block out each other's light, so move into each other's shadow. Last point I also still have active here is Juno, and Juno is the asteroid goddess, Hera. The ancient Greek Hera is the wife of Zeus, Jupiter. And her emphasis is so much one on loyalty and commitment and devotion in our relationships. So we see we've got this huge Libra influence here. Like I said, a solar eclipse is a brand new beginning, but the south node implies that there's a lot of things ending at the same time, a lot of closure, a lot of dynamics that were ending. If you want to be tangible and concrete, you can say there's a lot of relationships that might be ending right now, a lot of karma falling away or karmic contracts being done, and us feeling like we need to move on from certain relationships or relationship dynamics with certain people. And even though that might be the case for many of you, of us, um, the deeper dynamic this points to with the Libra archetype is, of course, one of how we are learning to balance ourselves with each other. Burning bridges might be an easy way out to sometimes maybe also not feel the aforementioned feelings so much, but to just make that clean cut, remembering Libra rules swords, right? Um, Swords are of the mind. Swords are able to judge that sort of judgment which can be in perfect equilibrium, ideally, which is, of course, again, that Libra archetype. But we also got other dynamics going on, and this is first and foremost that Venus, the ruler of Libra, is in Scorpio right now. So this entire Libran influence and our Libran ideals and wishes and desires for harmonious, beautiful, peaceful relationship and relationship dynamics gets already this deep undertone and undercurrent of much deeper drives, desires, urges, but also pains and wounds, right? That Scorpio's territory definitely also signifies. Scorpio talks about trust and intimacy, right? But inherent in trust is already the potential for that breaking of the trust, for a sense of betrayal. So Venus in Scorpio knows all too well the pain of abandonment, the grief it causes, the feelings of being betrayed, backstabbed, having had trust and deep emotional intimacy, having that broken. So there's a lot of old emotional stuff that really wants to come up with this eclipse, that really asks us how we apply ourselves in relationships and how much we are also maybe projecting our old wounds and our old pain out onto the other. Black Moon Lilith, I alluded to it earlier, it's the darkest point of the moon. The moon, of course, is our emotional nature, it's our own inner yin nature. And Black Moon Lilith is the darkest moment of that part of that cycle. It talks about the deep, profound unconscious and things that we push down, press down, pushed aside into our subconscious or unconscious. The eclipse, an eclipse is always, especially a solar eclipse, is like a huge resetting. It's turning off the light and then turning it on again. So there's a huge cosmic reset which wants to initiate so many brand new beginnings in how we do relationships, freeing us, liberating us, South Node, Lilith, from old dynamics of the past that are not serving us any longer. Kind of really learning to slowly close all of these profound lessons which we've all been living through in the last 1.5 years with the South Node moving through Libra and all these very subtle, tricky dynamics of codependency and people pleasing. And you probably heard these terms a lot now over the last 1.5 years, and still I find it interesting how subtle they can be, how pervasive, how subtly they come out in our relationship and relationship dynamics, how much we actually make ourselves fully dependent on another and not in an interdependent kind of way, which I really think is the truest sense of relationship. We are all interdependent on one another. There is no thing like an absolute true independence in the true sense of the word. We are always bound to each other. All of life is relationship. And all of life being relationship means there is the constant negotiation, the constant trying to, with diplomacy and tact, um, and hopefully a certain clear-headedness, a cool mind, to learn to balance ourselves with all of the relations that we are in, to our body, to the world, to our food, to our neighbors, to our lovers, to our enemies, right? Um, and yeah, there is a deep ending here. There is a deep ending of these kinds of patterns. Like I said, that might manifest for quite many, of wanting or feeling or needing that they need to end certain relationships that are just not serving them any longer. At the same time, also be aware of where and how your own unconscious and old, deep, maybe deeply painful emotional energy might burst out. And because with Libra, we always also talk about the dynamics of projecting and projecting our energies out onto the other, where that mirror of the other can help us to learn to see what we were not able to hold within ourselves. And then it's of course good to have relationships and connections in our lives where we might feel safe enough to have that deep trust, reliability, sincerity, commitment to our mutual emotional growth, and to see and to learn to not to take things too personal, but to be willing to work things through that we might be, maybe in a brief moment, hopefully brief, unconsciously projected out onto the other. So yeah, there is a lot of emotional stuff here deep underneath the surface that we might not even be able to fully grasp or hold or analyze, right? With Libra and the air signs, we like to analyze and dissect things so much. Of course, we're in the last phases here of Pluto at the very end of Capricorn, 29 of Capricorn, and there's this deep internal push of needing to really reclaim our own authority and our own sovereignty, our own integrity. There's really profound shifts, collective shifts that are much deeper than anything that we can even put into words. On top of that, of course, Uranus is slowly closing its cycle in Taurus, and Neptune is slowly closing its cycle in Pisces. And if you think about the lunar nodes, they always move backwards through the zodiac, and they are about to finish their 19-year-long cycle once the North Node hits 0 degrees of Aries, which is the beginning and the end of the zodiac at the same time, right? 29 of Pisces is the true end, 0 degrees of Aries, that spring equinox point, is the true beginning. The North Node hitting that point in a few months, and then over the next 1-2 years, all of these outer planets also ending their transits through their signs and shifting into new signs. We're in this huge in-between space right now. And that might also be brought up a lot already by last eclipse from 2 weeks ago with Neptune, that points to this deeper dynamic of wanting and needing to find a sense of trust and flow and surrender, while we might feel that so much of our old world, of our old identity, of how we made sense of things, of the way we were able to find meaning and an alignment with our being, with that higher being, might feel like it's slipping away. And building that fundamental trust and safety in ourselves and our own connection to life, to love, to spirit, allows us also to be so much more centered and clear in our relationships without the possibility for projection to be occurring that much, right? It's about holding ourselves and being able to hold each other. This is further activated, of course, and shown by Venus being in Scorpio and Mars right here being in the middle of Cancer, where of course it'll go retrograde over Leo and Cancer over the winter. Much more on that later. And they're both making also a trine to Saturn in the middle of Pisces. So the themes from last eclipse from 2 weeks ago just feel like there's a deep continuation here of a huge release, of a huge letting go, of really finding an ending and closure to things. Yes, there is a big new beginning. Yes, many new things want to come, and how we do relationships and how we live love and how we allow ourselves to love, and not just in a romantic or sexual way, but in all of our relations, right? And the grand trine, as it's called, right? When three planets in the same element make all a trine aspect to each other, and they create this beautiful grand triangle that you see in the middle, right? With Mars and Cancer, there is a snappiness. There is a certain emotional sensitivity right now where we might get defensive very quickly, right? Um, but both of them also making a trine to Saturn and Pisces just deepens these themes of trust and surrender and letting things go and letting them flow, giving them away. Pisces finding forgiveness and compassion for the other and for the position of the other, but also for ourselves, but also of finding that resilience, right? Saturn and Pisces talk so much about emotional resilience, emotional integrity, taking full responsibility for how our actions affect other people emotionally, right? But also taking full accountability and responsibility for our own emotional realities and not projecting them out so much. And this beautiful grand water trine is really, there's a steep emotional support in the background that helps us to really work through this stuff, work through also the unconscious dynamics that might be popping up here. Lastly, of course, Mars just crossed this point, but it's still in a square to Mercury in Libra, right? Um, And that applies heat to conversations, which already the last eclipse from 2 weeks ago, we had Mercury-Saturn opposition, implied that like we're in this time phase where there might be also very intense or deep conversations happening. Um, and it shows there's still a bit of heat in our mind and how we speak with one another. But the deeper side of Cancer asks us also to take care of our own inner child. It's not about controlling, which is Saturn, controlling our emotions, but it's about allowing ourselves to truly feel them, especially the ones we can't fully articulate, the ones we can't fully process, the ones we can't even fully understand of why we're feeling a certain way that we're feeling. But truly, the Mars and Cancer coming home to ourselves. The retrograde over this winter will just emphasize this again and again and again so much, and will re-emphasize this need for deep emotional inner healing and of our own inner children. But at the same time, of course, Mars is still the ruler of the North Node in Aries, while Venus is still the ruler of the South Node in Libra. So both of them now having arrived in these two water signs also implies that the path forward in order to be able to stand on our own 2 feet, walk our own path fearlessly, or rather courageously in the face of fear, and step into greater sovereignty with that, all this positive Aries side, so that our relationships can be more balanced because we're real, because we're honest, because we're direct. We're not playing games, we're not playing masking, right? The Libra energy can fall prey to that sometimes. Um, that in order to be able to arrive at all of these points, it is so necessary to find deep emotional safety with ourselves and safety with our inner children, and thus also safety with the inner children of other people, and finding that Cancerian compassion and nourishment and care and softness. While the world gets more and more crazy, what can we do to bring more peace? For finding more peace within ourselves first, so that also there we don't tend to project our anger, our hopelessness, our fear, our anxiety out onto other people or the world at large. But to learn to really nourish our own selves, creating a safe emotional space, at least for ourselves and with ourselves or the ones close to us. So yeah, those are a few themes of this eclipse. I feel it's, even though it unleashes a lot of primal power and maybe also darkness, that's the Juno, the Lilith side here. Um, at the same time, it feels like this energy won't be that lingering, like it won't be as 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 grievous, maybe as heavy as some of the past eclipses of this year. And then the last thing which I really find interesting to point out is um, that you don't need the chart for this anymore, that the last solar eclipse 6 months ago in Aries was exactly to get the conjunct Chiron, asking us to heal our relationship to ourselves and to our own instincts, right? And to our own sense of self. And now we have that next solar eclipse from Aries to Libra, from self to other. Um, and it's again exactly conjunct this archetype and this point that talks about coming to terms with shadow, coming to terms with our own shadow, coming to terms with the shadow of the world, and learning Libra in the best way to make peace with it instead of projecting it. Yeah, and just a continuation. It's quite mysterious. It's quite beautiful. It's quite magical as this universe is, if we have our eyes open enough to see that, and to see that there is really this continuing push for humanity to find deep and profound healing with all of our relations, starting with ourselves, but then also with the other, right? That both of these eclipses, in many ways, in very profound ways, also talk about. So I hope that was helpful. Let me know your feelings, opinions, experiences gladly in the comments. If you liked this, please give it a like and a subscribe. Still find myself feeling funny saying that, but yeah, I would really appreciate your support to have that known or make yourself visible if you want to support me in this. And yeah, wishing you beautiful and very healing solar eclipse, new moon tomorrow. See you next time. Bye bye.